Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of a concept, an idea that has been kind of percolating through my head, rolling around up there, until finally this morning it gelled as I was trying, it finally crystallized, if you will. It hit me like a flash of light, quite literally, because it was, regarding a flashlight. This right here is a beautiful flashlight. This is the TorchLab BOSS 35. This is on loan from my buddy Tony over at Everyday Commentary. He has a full review up of it that is very, very good. The simple fact is that this is an absolutely amazing light, and this is a $400 flashlight. But the thing is, it is really, really impressive. Tony makes the argument that this may be the perfect flashlight, and frankly, I'm kind of inclined to agree with him at some level. It is perfectly reprogrammable. In fact, you reprogram it by putting it up against your computer screen, where the computer will then use patterns of light that it detects using a little diode over here. It will use those patterns to program itself, which is amazing. It puts out absolutely beautiful light, and lots of it. 1200 lumens out of a CR120, a 18350 battery. It is absolutely an amazing piece. Read Tony's review for the full story. He loves this light just deeply, and it shows, and he does a really good job describing it. The simple fact is that I sat down and I tried to review this, and I failed, because I just couldn't get a head of steam for it. That was weird to me, because this is truly amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. But I just didn't care for it, and I was trying to figure out why until I realized what's going on. This right here is a piece of Icarus Gear. So this, the tale of Daedalus and Icarus, if you're not super familiar with your Greek mythology, it simply goes like this. Daedalus was a famous craftsman. Icarus was his kid. They were trapped in a maze with, I think, not a centaur, a minotaur. There you go. I think that's the same story. Either way, but the way this goes is that Daedalus and Icarus together built a set of wings. You put some sticks, you put some feathers into the sticks with some wax, and that allows you to flap around like a bird and fly. And so Icarus throws on these wings, and Daedalus said, dude, they're made of wax, so don't get them too hard, or they're gonna melt and you're gonna die. And Icarus was like, oh yeah, cool, I hear you, Dad, no problem. And then he starts flying. He's like, wow, cool, I can go higher. And then he goes higher, and then oh wow, cool, I bet I can go higher. Then he goes higher and higher and higher and higher until eventually he gets too close to the sun and the wax melts. At which point the feathers fall out of the wax, and Icarus falls out of the sky. Splush ends up in the drink and drowns. Sad, sad situation for Icarus, but a good lesson for the rest of us. You can't fly too high. And for me, I think this flashlight flew too high. Let's talk a little bit about what I mean by that. I've talked in the past about the curve of diminishing returns. The basic idea with this is that, and I've got a whole video about it, you should probably watch, I'm proud of that video. I'll try and link it down below in the description. But the basic idea with the curve of diminishing returns is if you go from something that is just terrible, like this is a $1 sort of pocket knife, to something that is a $100 pocket knife, there is a huge jump up in excellence. This is really bad. This is really, really good. So the excellence change is gigantic. Whereas if you go from a $500 pocket knife to a $600 pocket knife, the change in excellence is actually quite small. Yes, it's better. The $600 one, by and large, unless you're getting your face ripped off, it better be a little bit better. But the change is very small, whereas if you're going from $0 to $100, the change is gigantic. So that's the curve of diminishing returns. Over time, as you pay more money, at first it gets you a lot of return, and then after a while it sorts of levels off, where it's like, yeah, it's a little better, but it's not that much better. And the simple fact is that, this is the case for any gear-related hobby. And the simple fact, too, is that for everybody, I think there's a point for any given kind of gear where going up the curve of diminishing returns any higher doesn't make sense anymore. And I feel like this is kind of a truism that I didn't pick up on for a long time. And I think everybody has their own unique point, where basically there's a certain point where it's like you start paying more money and you don't feel like the amount of return you're getting is actually worth it. Where it's kind of like the siren song of this, to mix in other mythologies here, is the idea that, oh yeah, it's a great piece. I really like it a lot, but I don't know that I need this much flashlight. I don't know that I need this much knife. I don't know that I need this much watch. Where it's like you're happy with it, but you also kind of feel like, yeah, you might have gone a little too high there. You went a little too high up the price range. And, you may feel like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing before you get it, and then you get it and you're just like, oh, that was a lot more money for, Yeah, I guess it's better. This doesn't mean that the gear that you pick up is bad. This is not a bad flashlight. You can acknowledge the excellence 100%, but you don't feel like the money was super well spent if it goes above your Icarus point. Now, to me, and again, I think this is very personal. Everybody's going to have a different point. You know, for a lot of folks watching your channel, their Icarus point for a pocket knife may be like, $60 or something like that. Past that, like, what are you doing, you jackass? But anyways, for me, in terms of flashlights, this is way past the Icarus point. It is better than any small light I've ever handled, but for $400, it can better be better than anything I've handled. I can simultaneously agree with Tony that this may be the very best light in this format ever. And yet I have absolutely no desire to buy one. I'm not even tempted to. Like, even if I had the billionaire's credit card from a couple of videos ago, I'm not necessarily sure that I would go here. It's too high up in that curve. For me, this guy is flying way too damn close to the sun. Now, mind you, often for a lot of folks, you don't know that value is there if, financial constraints are present. Even if you're in the case where you couldn't buy, and most people are. I mean, and that's the thing. It all depends on the area. But for a lot of folks, financial constraints prevent you from ever hitting this point. Like, you may really want to try a $600 pocket knife, but you can never afford to because, well, it's $600. That's a lot of freaking money. So at some level, this is a first world problem par X of freaking lots. And if you have gotten to the point where you have found your Icarus point in any piece of gear, then you are a lucky human. You're doing okay. You are blessed, if you will. But the simple fact is that it's not just about the budget, because it seems, at least for me, to vary from types of gear. For me, for pocket knives, I feel like my Icarus point is around $900. Like, $900 is a lot of money, and frankly, even then, I'm feeling like, oh, this is getting... But the thing is, there were $900 knives where it's just like, yeah, that's really impressive. Like, okay, the Protect Sprint here, yeah, that's a lot of freaking money, but it's also a very, very impressive little piece here, and so it's not like, okay, that's a problem. The Grimsmo Norseman, mind you, this should be a $650 knife, but now it's $900. I can see for some people feeling that way, or even like this little Pena custom here. This is closer to $800. Beautifully, beautifully freaking done. I think $850. Anyways, beautiful knife. And for me, I can still appreciate the change in goodness from a $400 knife to an $800 knife, $900. There is definitely a change there. But any higher than that, when you start getting into the rarefied air of the custom knife scene, where you've got your Moku thighs and your whatnots, to me, that's where you start to lose me. It's just like, there you're putting in a lot more money, and the return just doesn't make any sense to me. That's personal, but that's where it is for me. For watches, honestly, I think I would top out around $8,000. Mind you, I'm not going to get there because California real estate, but even this guy, I'm really happy with this watch, and this guy is in like the $4,800 range, brand new retail price, don't pay retail. Talk to my buddy if you want, the lowest jewelers in Ann Arbor, Michigan, talk to DK, whatever. But you can do better than retail, but even still, at retail, I think this is in that reasonable range, but past $8,000, I feel like I'm spending a lot more money, and I don't know that I'm getting a whole lot more in the way of a return there. I feel like it's pushing that, and I don't know that I could spend 10 grand on a watch and still feel okay about it. I'd love to have that option. I'd love to give it a try, but, past there, the money feels like it's worth more to me than the improvement. For pens, my range is actually a lot smaller. I think I top out around like $150 or so. I really can't conceive of a pen that would be good enough to make me pay more than like a Lamy 2000, and make me pay more than like a $120, $150. I mean, I'm sure there are great pens out there. I know there are great pens out there that are more expensive, but I don't know that they are worth it to me. I don't know that that's kind of my scene. That's my situation, if you will. So that's kind of the situation for me. That's where I'm thinking my Icarus point is here. And then I'm happiest around like $50 or something like that. In high-end audio, I absolutely crossed my Icarus point sometime back. I had a full audio setup. I upgraded to the high-end speakers. I had a very nice amplifier. I did all of that. I had an audio setup at one point in time. It was worth like $3,000 or something like that. I'm a very lucky man here. But this, I realized now, and I think I even realized then, that it just wasn't that much better than the $900 setup I'd had previously. It's a very, very good setup, but it's not like, oh, oh my God. And so I crossed that line. I flew too high. And then when I moved out here and I had a lot less space, and frankly, I kind of realized that, so now I'm back down to like a $400 soundbar, which sounds, I'd say, like 95% is good and takes up very little space and freed up a whole bunch of cash. So to me, that's one of the major differences. It's just like when you fly too high, you realize, okay, I've got a lot of excellence here, but I don't need this much excellence. And so you can often settle back down to a better point. So this is just kind of a thing that I've noticed in my own personal irrationality with gear. And like I said, everybody's value is going to be different. And I'm not defending the fact that I think a $900 pocket knife is worthwhile. That's insane. I'll give you that. But everybody's got a different point. So, let me know in the comments if you felt this too and where your point roughly lives. And certainly there's value that can go up above. And if you get something nicer for cheaper, that's great. But the big takeaway from me for this is that this is not just about the money. I mean, I'm, even as a very lucky man who has a channel, who has supporters that make the money to spend on gear a little bit less of a concern, even then, I'm just not snapping up all of this super expensive gear. I mean, even if I could potentially afford a $3,000 knife, there's a reason I'm generally not doing it. It's past that point. And items like this little guy remind me that although pricey gear can absolutely be amazing, you've got to remember not to fly too close to the gear-related sun, or else, much like Icarus, you're going to be taking an unexpected and truly unpleasant bath. So anyways, there you go. I hope this has been interesting. Let me know if you've had any Icarus gear and kind of what your point is, and let me know if this makes any sense to you at all. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.